Hi, my name is Jane Bagnall. I'm a member of the Oak Park Women's Exchange, and I am a professional costume designer for theater and a milliner. And today I'm going to be demonstrating how to work with felt to create felt hats. It's a simple process, but it takes time. The first thing you have to do is prepare your felt, and this is called a cape line. The felt hat materials are available through milliner supplies. There aren't any, I don't think, commercial retail shops anymore. It almost all has to be purchased online. This one is called a cape line because it has more material this way. There's also called a hood, and it's much shorter and it makes smaller hats like this. A cape line, you can get a little bit of a brim, but not a real huge brim. Before you start working with the felt, you have to prepare it, and about 12 hours before you're going to use it, you need to wet it down completely. And so you run it under water, cold water, for a while, and then what you're going to do is you're going to roll it up and you're going to put it in an airtight baggie, close it, and just let it sit for about 12 hours before you can use it. Once it's prepared, then you need to cut off the edge because there's kind of a tight finished edge, and you only cut off about a quarter of this edge, quarter of an inch, and it helps release the grain of the felt so that you can start to work with it. One more thing we have to do before we can work with the felt is we have to heat it up. I use, this is just a store-bought steamer. There are commercial steamers, but this one works great. I'm going to put this on the steamer and I'm going to cover it with a plastic bag so that it can heat the felt up really well, and then we can start to sculpt with it, which is essentially what you do. You sculpt the felt. You can get lovely shapes and brims and all different kinds of cool lines. A lot of the Downton Abbey hats are created in this way. One of the reasons that hats are kind of expensive is because the cape lines and the hoods are expensive, and yeah, so that's where the big expense of your hat making comes in. I'm just going to set it on here, and I'm going to take a plastic bag and stick it over the whole thing, and we're going to let it steam for probably about 5 minutes so that it can really heat up before I can use it. One of the things you have to remember is that it's going to get really hot, so I use tongs to take it off of there and to start using it, and gloves are helpful too, although the heat can come through it, but it starts to cool down, and that's okay. So I'm just going to let it steam for about 5 minutes, and then we'll get started on how to shape it. Okay, I think our felt is probably hot, hopefully hot enough. That's where the tongs come in for this hot. And hopefully this is good and hot. You can leave your steamer on because you can, in order to reheat it, if you change your mind about things, you can hit it with steam and change stuff. This is called a head block. It's what I'm going to use to form the felt over, but to protect my felt block, I'm going to cover it with a plastic bag. And one of the first things we do is you have to stretch the felt out really, really good. And it's a lot of pulling. And what that does is it kind of releases the fibers so that it's easier to work with. It takes strength to do this. This is just a regular natural head block. This is called a hat block. Hat blocks, if you want to make like a fedora or a top hat or anything like that, you have to have the shape in order to create that, and you can do that in a couple of ways. This one I made, and it's made out of pink foam. This is covered with felt, and then there's a product called Sculptor Coat that makes it hard. So you can create these. The old-fashioned hat blocks were carved out of wood, and those are still available, but they're really expensive. So it's cheaper and easier for me to just create them. Okay, so I've got this stretched out. I'm going to start creating, and you really just start sculpting. Sometimes your felt will tell you what you want it to do. This one I created folds here. You can bring, it's sculpting. I don't know how else to explain it other than working with the material and deciding what you want it to do. You can roll edges, you can cut it off, but obviously you have to be pretty darn sure of what you want to do before you start cutting things off. There's lots of ways to finish edges. This one has a cut edge here, and it has a wired edge here, and there's wire sewn onto the edge of the felt to help it stand out. If you're going to do any kind of a brim, which this would have a little brim, this is marking my center front. You can see it's really pliable. You can pull it into any shape you want to pull it into. And you can see how it starts to form to the hat block. A fedora, like a men's fedora, is made exactly this way, and the hat block shapes the hat. I don't have to leave this all straight. I can start shaping it on this hat block too. It takes time. It's not immediate. I can shape folds into it. I can also pin into this. You can especially pin into this one so that if you start making shapes, you can pin these in place. And then what happens is, once you get it exactly how you want it, and if you want to, if it starts to get too cool, too hard, not easy enough to work with, you can hit it with the steamer again, and it becomes even more pliable. One of the fun things is you can get these kind of Sharpie wrinkly fold things. So really it's sculpting. The whole process is sculpting. Once I've got it the way I want it to be, I let it dry. And it usually takes about 24 hours for it to dry. You leave it, and then you start making decisions as to how you're going to finish edges, what kind of decoration you're going to do, and also before you start doing any of the decorations or any of the feathers, fancy stuff. I don't think I have any feathers. This one has been clipped and cut kind of all over, so you can flip up the edges, and I mean, it's really sculpting is what you're doing to create these things. Once you've got it exactly how you want it, there's a finish that hardens up a little bit, and it'll keep its shape. And really, that's all there is to it. The hardest part is figuring out how you want to sculpt this thing. So it takes time. The sculpting is the process, and you can change your mind. You can take it off. You can put it back on the steamer and start all over again. And that's the process. So I know I can't do a finished product, but I hope you have a little bit better idea how these things are created. And it's all a matter of art and figuring out how you want this thing to be shaped. For more information or to see hats that I've created, please visit Oak Park Women's Exchange or visit www.opwe.org and come visit us and all the artists that work here. Thank you.